What sets War Thunder apart from other vehicular combat games is the combined arms game mode. Aircraft can fight alongside tanks or ships, providing this weird relationship of mutual benefit for each branch. Because of tanks, aircraft that are generally unsuited for air battles find a place in combined arms like the Arado 234B. And because of aircraft, we get to enjoy SPAAs and, more recently, guided missile boats. But there exist some complaints that aircraft have made it difficult to play ground battles, perhaps stemming from modern aircraft chucking guided missiles and Ka-50s throwing Vickers from 10 kilometers away. Of course, we won't see War Thunder remove aircraft from Grand RB for reasons we will get into later. Right now, we'll focus on the benefits and disadvantages of aircraft in ground battles, and we'll see if a tank-only mode is viable. The best argument for aircraft being in ground battles is that it quote-unquote balances ground RB teams. Some argue that if CAS didn't exist, US, UK, and USSR would dominate because they have the most competitive tanks at top-tier lineups compared to countries like Germany or France. Sure, some will say the 3 Leclercs or 2 Type 90s and 1 Type 10 is better than 4 USSR top tiers or the US lineup, and that sometimes, I'm inclined to agree, but I would argue that in War Thunder, team compositions where US and USSR can really happen, it just spells bad news if the other team can't offset the tanks with CAS. I know what you're gonna say, but Doc, the US and USSR have the best CAS at top tier. They have the Bullpups, the Mavericks, the Vickers, and the K-29. What do other nations have? Italy has dumb bombs and unguided rockets for their fixed-wing aircraft at 11.3. You're right, I hear ya. I played China, and without the Z-19, China top tier is boned to high hell unless you incorporate Taiwan aircraft into the lineup, which I don't because... yeah. Their best SPA is a 9.7 MADPAD that has no proxy fuse. So what's the point I'm making? The point is, thanks to aircraft being ground battles, nations that don't have good SPA can take over the anti-aircraft role with their aircraft. Sure, China has awful CAS, but the J-70 and J-8B make for really good fighters. What's an F-4E with Mavericks going to do once he goes for a run and a PL-5B is on the way? There's really not much, unless he sees it coming and uses countermeasures, but then again, that would leave him open for gun kills. So that's the heart of what I wish to get at with the presence of aircraft in ground battles. The game is more complex and nuanced thanks to the presence of these aircraft. Not to mention that ground battles were designed around the aircraft tank ecosystem since tanks were added into the game. So we're probably never going to see aircraft removed from ground battles, aside from perhaps a separate game mode. At lower tiers, aircraft can sometimes be the tipping point when faced with tanks that are performing way too well. Sure, majority, if not all of the tanks can conceivably be defeated by another nation's tank and its BR, but sometimes you really just need an aircraft in a pinch when the tank is entrenched in a really good spot overlooking your spawn. I'm looking at you, Poland. Or when you need to halt and advance. Aircraft can do well with that. Aircraft are also useful for spotting, especially in Grand RB where there are no markers and the light tanks just can't find the tank from their perspective. Okay, let's say, hypothetically, that it did happen. Gaijin did remove some aircraft from tank battles out of the blue. What could we conceivably expect? Well, at top tier we'd see faster matches. Most of the players at top tier have a plane and helicopter lined up, and with those being removed, they don't really have anything else to keep them in the game. Games would probably just come down to the team with the most appropriate tanks in the lineup. SPA wouldn't be that affected since half their job is tank destroyers as well. Even missile-only SPAs like the Flarakad and Roland would probably still find use disabling MBT guns for tracks, or probably overpressuring light tanks. However, one tank that has to go would be the Ocelot. It can no longer physically fire its man pads now that aircraft are gone. As far as tanks are concerned, that's about it. Without the Ka-50 and MiG-27K, the USSR win rates will be dampened slightly, but in the grand scheme of things, USSR can hold its own thanks to team compositions and having that many tanks in their lineup. Will we have a tank-only game mode? Personally, I don't believe that Gaijin will create a mode that's tanks only because that is what sets War Thunder apart from its competitors. Gaijin has cultivated the game around this premise. Frankly, the only reason they're making any considerable money from helicopters is because their anti-tank appeal and novel approach to ground battles. So it's very doubtful that such a mode will exist outside of a limited time event, and maybe even at that is very unlikely. In my opinion, tank-only game modes aren't fun. They don't make for a very fun experience and makes Grand Air be more repetitive and monotonous than it already is. So I prefer to play what we currently have than to try to change it up. So what do you think? Should there be a tank game mode? Pop in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching. This is Dr. MD, fair skies, and may your armor soak up some shots.